The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, proud pony. That stands for Parent of Neurodiverse Individual, which I could not be more proud to wear that moniker. Thrilled to be here with you this morning. We are live. I know it looks like 2021, but it isn't. It's 2025 and we are live right now. It looks this way though because I'm at home. Doing the show live from home, and I'm doing that because we're putting together our new studio in our new location. So that is why it looks the way that it does, but we are live. Today is the 7th of May and excited to be here with you guys. I want to let you know that we're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Chris, our fabulous Chris Desmond, is already starting to show you some of the different ways that you can be watching the show, some of the different ways that you can interact with us. I just want to say we have two very robust YouTube channels, and I am the person who monitors the comments on the Autism Live channel, and I try to get to it every week. The last couple of weeks I didn't because we were moving and all kinds of things were going on, but I took some time this morning to see some of the things that you guys had written in the last 2 weeks. And I just really want you to know that we appreciate it when you write in and tell us that you saw something and it helped you. I also love it when you guys ask questions. I sent back more questions for some people. There was somebody wrote in a question on a show that we did like 4 years ago. I love that. And it shows it to me. So, and I do check in on those. I try to be very diligent about that every week or so if something gets in the way, but it's meaningful to us. It lets us know that you're watching, that something meant something to you, or that you had deeper questions. So we have the YouTube channel, Autism Live. We also have the one, Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm not the one who monitors the comments on that page, but we have people who monitor that. So please feel free to write in on either page and ask questions on videos. We're really happy to interact with you. I have to be honest, that's the thing that I think is the most exciting for us, is when we hear from you guys. When I started this job over 14 years ago, I said to my husband, it's very weird. I just sit all day long and basically talk to this dot on the wall. And I don't know, is anybody listening? I don't know. And then people started writing in. I was like, oh, people in Pakistan are listening. That's crazy. I never knew that. So it's really, it's very rewarding for us, and especially for me, when you guys write in and tell us that you watched, that you saw something, that it was important to you. Just want you to know, we appreciate that. Hey, I'm back. It said lost the connection. See, this is what happens when I'm from home. We've been doing so well for a couple of days. Anyway, I'm here and talking to you guys, letting you guys know that there are many different ways to watch the show, many different ways to appreciate, to participate. That's the word I wanted. The chat is open right now for YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook especially, but other sites as well. And I can see if you guys write in comments. Chris is showing you some of the different ways that you can connect with the show. I hope we haven't lost Facebook. It says we haven't, but let's see if we have. Anyway, got a great topic for you today that we're going to be talking about. Oh, I didn't mention the glow thing. When you download our podcasts, they're free. They're a free download wherever you get your podcasts. But you will have ads on them. And I hope that you guys appreciate that. We're not trying to be, keep that a secret. There are ads on our free download. That helps us to defray the cost. But if that's annoying to you because you're working out and you need to have continuation of, I get it. There is an option where you can get it ad-free by going to glow.fm/autism-live. It's just $5 a month, which is a very low price for everything that we do. Anytime we debut a new show or do a live show, that shows up in your inbox and you can listen to it whenever you want to, ad-free. And I want to make sure I say that It says Autism Live, glow.fm/Autism Live, but it really is everything that we do on the Autism Network. So if you do that, you will get Autism Live, Ask Dr. Doreen, and really everything else that we do. So I hope that if that's appropriate for you, that you will check that out. Please know we're not making any money on that $5 thing. It really isn't about that, but it helps us to be able to give it to you the way you want it. So that you can get the content. That's what we're all about here, providing information and inspiration to that larger autism community that starts with individuals who are themselves on the spectrum, whichever words they like to use, but includes all of us who love those individuals and want to be good allies, good accomplices. Yeah. So that's us. All right. What are we talking about today? Today is another parent to parent. We've been taping. I misspoke the other day because we were taping an interview that will debut in a couple of weeks about that Neuro Talent Works. That's coming, you guys. Ooh, good interview. But today we're talking about planning for summer success because we're not quite at summer yet, right? But we can all feel it coming. It's barreling at us at 98 miles an hour. And if we're, that saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? And summer's a great time for us and for our kiddos. Sometimes we get caught up in the old idea of summer, which is, oh, we all get a break and we're all going to lay on the beach and do absolutely nothing, forgetting that that's maybe not the best thing for our kiddos right now. I'm not saying you can't get there, right? But right now, for our kiddos, if you're here, then I know you're wanting a lot more for your kiddo, whether they're a 3-year-old, 15-year-old, or 22, you're wanting more for them. So maybe laying on a beach, not the thing to do, at least not a lot. And it may be that your child isn't even capable of laying on a beach and appreciating I'm taking a break, sensory for myself, and I'm laying in the sun. We want to get there, right? So how can we plan for success in the summer? That's really what this is about, that there's some things that ways that you can think about things now, things that you can start to plan if you really want to make the most of the summer. Now, is it essential that you do there's 6 things on here that you can do. Is it essential that you do them all and do them all every day? No, you don't have to. This is really a presentation about look at what makes sense and what are you willing to do and what do you have the time for, what's your bandwidth? Don't make yourself crazy, right? There's no need to do that. Be kind to yourself. However, since we're not there yet, we're not in the summer, now is a moment, I'm a gardener. And I love when the seed catalogs come in early January, and I love to sit and dream about what my garden will be and plant. Does it end up being exactly what I planted? No, my friends, it does not. But there's that dream phase when everything is possible, and it does give you an opportunity to decide, what do I want to prioritize? And I think that's super important for the summer because it's going to fly by. Didn't just this, the last few months fly by? It's like, how did we get in May? How did this happen? Because the days go by, do they? So let's be mindful. Let's think about, what do I want to accomplish this summer? What's important to me? Let's start a plan. Okay, so we're going to throw some 6 things at you here. This is a parent-to-parent talk, just keeping it real. All right, let's go first of all to the overreaching thing that it has to be fun. Oh my goodness. If it's not fun, what are we doing? I love Dr. Jonathan Tarbox used to say to me, here's the things that we want to be doing with your child and lots of opportunities. And he would say, but Shannon, if it's not fun, what are you doing? And I would go, that's right. If it's not fun, what are we doing? I loved, because I used to be a performer, and whenever there's a tradition, a superstition in the theater that if somebody's going to go on stage, you say to them, break a leg, right? And it's not about breaking their actual bone. And I know a lot of people don't know this, but the velvet things that hang down that you have to walk past to get on stage, those are called legs. And when you pass it so that you're on stage, it's breaking a leg. So the whole thing was, it was basically saying, good luck, get on that stage, break that leg and get on that stage, right? But now everybody thinks it's breaking your actual leg. No, it's not that. But my dad didn't like that anyway. And so no matter where I was in the world, if I was going to have a performance, especially the first performance, I would call him and he would say to me, have fun. Because, and my dad, he didn't call me Shannon, he called me Aggie. He'd say, Aggie, what's the point? What's the point of all the work that you've done if it's not at this point that you're going to have fun? And I really have that baked into my bones that it needs to be fun. And so it wasn't a foreign concept to me that when we were doing intensive intervention, it had to be fun. Is that hard on some days? Yes, it most certainly is. So it's important to talk about why. Why is it absolutely critical that we all have fun this summer? I know it seems kind of like a duh, but sometimes we got to define it, right? Here are just some of the reasons that I came up with, but you can add more, I'm sure. Because if it isn't fun, we all burn out. I hope you'll all hear me when I say that. We will all burn out. You can be the most wonderful parent on the planet. You can be the most organized person. You can have this completely under control, which, by the way, was not me. But you can do that. But at some point, if you're not having fun, you're going to burn out. And guess who else burns out? Everyone in the family. That means your significant other. That means your child or children on the spectrum. Everybody burns out. So it's got to be fun. Also, everybody needs a chance to get a chance for change, or we get bored, or our kids get inflexible. So every once in a while, we got to change it up and throw some fun in there to help everybody remember that it's good to be flexible, that good things happen, and we don't want anybody to get bored. My mother always used to say that boredom is for people who aren't intelligent. And so if we would say in the summer, I'm bored, she would say, oh, are you telling me that you're not very smart? Find something to do. Smart people figure out things to do. I don't know that I completely agree with her. I think that we can forget that we don't have to be bored, and we can have, I think it's about creativity, and sometimes your creativity dries up. But you know what refreshes the creativity is doing something creative. Okay, next one. It's important to build rapport, traditions, trust, and memories. Because as you're raising your children, we have some pretty intense things that we want for our children, right? We want our children to be able to communicate. We want them to be able to tell us what's going on, but we want to be close with our children. We want to create memories. And I don't know about you, but I feel like traditions are really important. Sometimes we can't do the traditions that we had before. And I remember being very bummed out about that when my son was little, that there were traditions that I had hoped to share with him that he was not having. He couldn't comprehend them. They weren't important to him. They didn't matter to him. It meant that I had to morph a little bit, and we created new traditions, but they are traditions now. There was the one Halloween that I couldn't find a pumpkin that I could afford. I don't know. There was a pumpkin shortage, something, something, something. You know what I'm saying? And I was really bummed out about it because I knew he wanted to carve a pumpkin because we'd had that tradition for a couple of years. He was probably 7 or 8, and money was thin, and the pumpkins were rudely expensive, and they were rare. And I'd waited too long, and I was beating myself up about it. But we went and got a watermelon. And I got kind of a round watermelon, and we carved the watermelon. And let me tell you something. It was so much easier than carving a pumpkin, and you got to eat the watermelon. And so now we always try to get a watermelon at Halloween. Sometimes they're rare and sometimes they're more expensive, you know what I mean? But it's a funny thing now that it's a tradition that we look for a watermelon that can pass as a pumpkin and have watermelon for Halloween. Bizarre, but that's a piece of connection that I have with my son that's meaningful. That's something we'll talk about when he, if, and I hope he does have children of his own, but that'll be something that he'll share and go, let's get a watermelon, and it'll be a thing. Do you know what I mean? So we don't get to those things and that rapport and those memories if we don't A, plan a little bit, and B, make room for them. So that's really important. But also this next one is huge to me as a former teacher. It's an ideal time for our kiddos to catch up. I always talk about the tortoise and the hare, right? That it seems like the hare should win the race, but the hare is busy doing other things and the tortoise keeps moving constantly in a direction. Same thing with summer. We, as a former teacher, we always used to talk about summer slide. Very documented thing that all kids will regress a little bit during the summer if they're not continuing to grow and be educated. And it's why a lot of parents, even of neurotypical kids, will put their kids in like computer camps and things like that because it keeps the brain moving in another direction. But a lot of parents don't do that, right? Or can't. Let's be honest about that. And so instead, for us with our kiddos, instead of them getting any further behind, we want them to be moving in that direction. And sometimes that means that if they catch up over enough summers, that they're caught up. And then we never let them fall behind, right? That's a very famous saying of Dr. Graham Fichet's. When people would come to CARD, she would always say to them, we're going to get your child caught up and we're never going to let them fall behind again. Woo! I still get goosebumps when I think about that because that's a fabulous mission to be on. Also, it needs to be fun. Why? Because you deserve it. If you think that parenthood is going to be all drudgery, man, like who wants to get up to that? Who wants to bound out of bed and go, oh, I'm excited. It's drudgery again. And look, there are parts of parenthood and there are parts of parenting and parts of being an adult that are drudgery, right? So let's find the fun because it's a choice, right? Your family deserves it too. Your kiddo deserves having fun. Of course, we know that for our kiddos. It's harder to know that for ourselves. It's what's best for your child or your children on the spectrum. Having fun and learning is what is best for your child. We know statistics and studies have shown us that kids that are having fun will learn more and they will learn faster. We already know that. So why wouldn't we want to have happy learning kids? We do, right? But sometimes we forget the pathway to it. And last, but certainly not least on my list, but then I'd love to hear what's on your list, is that it reduces anxiety. Oh my goodness. And we all have it to some degree, right? Having a little bit of anxiety is a very normal human thing to have. But, if we believe the research that if you're a parent of a child with any kind of diagnoses or special needs, then your anxiety statistically is going to be higher and is comparable to the anxiety of people who have been in combat. I mean, so if we can do anything to lower that anxiety, and then how about we talk about our kiddos on the spectrum? We know that they are much more prone to anxiety and that especially our teens, boy, when the hormones start going, they are very prone to anxiety. And nobody wants that. And nobody wants to be overwhelmed with anxiety. So we plan for the summer, we have fun, and we do all the things that we just talked about on that slide, which is a great accomplishment. Okay, so what are the 6 things that you can do? Some of them are more fun than others, but you can make any of them fun. So step 1, and I know this is the one where I get the most pushback, but I'm telling you, you guys, remember what we said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? And one of the best ways that you can really plan to succeed is to make a visual schedule. And right now you could just be in the planning phases of it, or you could make the visual schedule now. And what I've written on the side is, yes, it's necessary. Because I know everybody goes, okay, well, I'll do everything else, but I don't want to do the visual schedule. I would like to make a bet with you. That if you're in the Doubting Thomas thing and you're like, I really don't want to make the visual schedule, let's try to make it fun for you, first of all, or you can just purchase one. But I want to have a bet with you that if you try the visual schedule this summer and you really try it, and you really don't see that it makes your life better, that it makes your child have less anxiety, then you can reach out to me and say, that didn't work, and I'll do something to make it up for you. I don't know what, but I know I won't have to, because I feel very confident because it actually makes your life better and it makes your child's life better. Because you don't want to wake up every morning and have to reinvent the wheel. oh my gosh, that's going to give you more anxiety. And what you'll find is that when your child has a visual reminder of what comes next, they will have less anxiety, which means you will have less whining and you will have less tantrums and less anxiety. It's a winner, 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 chicken dinner. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Now, for those of you who are crafter makers, you go right ahead. You make that as complicated as you want it to be, right? But you don't have to, and you can purchase them. It can be reusable. You don't have to make a new visual schedule every day, although some people like to, if that's your jam, but I don't think it's most people's jam. But it allows you to schedule fun. And I think if your child is willing or able, having them help with the visual schedule and creating it, super, super advantageous for them and for you. I think one of the key things is to have a place for it to live. Now, we had a place in our dining room, which is where we put the visual schedule. It's what's appropriate for you. There are visual schedules you can take on your phone so that you have it on the go. The main thing is that whatever it is, you want to make sure that your child has access to it. So if you're going to put it on your phone and you don't allow your child to look at your phone, then it's just for you and you got to have another one for your child. I have seen people do this, well, let's get to the next slide and let's talk about how you build this and how you do this. So, you can buy one on eBay or Etsy. Etsy has a whole, and Pinterest, you can do it there. There's a thing called Teachers Pay Teachers, and teachers love visual schedules. Why? Because they work and they have them in their classroom, but they also make stuff for families during the summer. They look all different. I've seen people do this using a cookie sheet. Like, how you got one of those old cookie sheets that it just, it's unsightly and you're afraid anybody's going to come to your house and see this cookie sheet and judge you by it. Okay, take it in the backyard and put down some newspaper and spray paint that with some Rust-Oleum so that it's a bright, vibrant color, right? And then you can mount it to the wall and then you get some magnets and you can move the magnets around and it becomes your visual schedule. I love those. Have I ever had the time to do that? No. We got really into the whole Velcro and laminating thing for a while. And I had it inside the kitchen cabinet because my son was a little bit older. And when people came over to the house, we didn't necessarily want them to know his business and what we were doing. But I could open up the kitchen. We had one really long cabinet, where you could keep your broom and stuff. And I would open it up and hanging there was the visual schedule plus a bunch of different tags that said different things. So every day we would get up one summer and I would open up the cabinet and I would go, okay, let's make the schedule today. And I would say, pick 2 fun things from below because there were fun things that we needed to work, that we had to be on the schedule. And then there were other things that we'll get to in a minute. But he would pick the 2 things like, it might be play video games and go swimming. And I would consult him and go, put one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And he would put it on the schedule. There were blocks on the schedule that he would put it on. And then we would together decide what the other things were. So he had made the schedule, y'all. But it was just little Velcro pieces and he could put it on, but he knew what was coming. I always think about what Dr. Graham Pichet used to say about, imagine if you went to work today and you had no idea, you didn't have a schedule, didn't know what you were responsible for the day or what would happen, and you didn't know what time you were going to leave. And you didn't know what time you got a break or what time you were going to have lunch. How much anxiety would you have walking in the door and how exhausted would you be at the end of the day? It would be cruel. It would be cruel because you'd be like, oh, there's this one task I have to do that's really, really hard. And I don't know when they're going to throw that at me, right? Not nice. And yet, we do this to kids all the time. We motor them around and we go, okay, now we're going to the grocery store. And they're like, I didn't know we were going to the grocery store. They don't have the words to say that sometimes. So they throw a tantrum. But if we're able to show them on a visual schedule and say, okay, and potentially one that they helped make and agreed to, because sometimes you throw things that have to happen. Like we have to go to the grocery store, right? So I would say, so my son would put swimming in the morning and video games in the afternoon. And I would say, oh, we got to put grocery shopping. Where do you want to put that? Now he's got some choice. And so he puts it on the schedule, and then, we put the other things around it. So it's not coming out of the blue at him. It's really so good, you guys. I know it's a pain to start it, but once you start it, it's there for you. Lots of other ways to do it if you want to get creative. I'll be honest with you, that there were years that we did the visual schedule, and then I kind of faded it out when he got a little bit older. And then we got into, gosh, I don't know if it was before the pandemic or during the pandemic, when he was older, a teenager, and he didn't have school and he didn't have other things, and he wasn't doing camp anymore. I think it was like the last summer before he started working, right? And I was like, oh, we just have this summer that's open-ended and we're going to do some travel and whatever. He kind of struggled a little bit. He was having a hard time managing his time and figuring out what he wanted to do. And I was kind of caught short by that. I hadn't put together a visual schedule. So I just took 99-cent store wrapping paper, because on the back it's white. It doesn't even have the grid when you get it at the 99-cent store. It's just white. Oh, it's so useful for every craft thing under the world. And we just hung a big piece up, and we would just make the schedule in the day. And I saw that his anxiety went down. And I'll be honest with you, that was the last summer that I had to do that, because now he has his phone and he keeps his own schedule, and he makes his own plans, because he's learned. And he has times when he doesn't have something planned. It's not like his whole life is planned, but he's learned, if I want to get something done, I got to schedule it, and then I can have free time, right? And the anxiety does not become an issue. So you can keep this as simple as you want to, or you can make it as fun as you want to. It's really what aesthetically works for you in your home and what conveys the message. When your kids are little, make it as visual as possible, but add text words to things, so that if one of the choices is pool, so you make you can get them on the internet a little icon that looks like somebody swimming, but you write underneath it swimming or pool, whatever word you want to do, because they will associate that with it. But have the visual. Later on, it can all be text, right? I have my Outlook calendar now, and I live by my Outlook calendar. And if something doesn't make it onto my Outlook calendar, life is a mess, right? So it's a visual schedule, but it's all text, and there are many, many, many of these. And if you're telling me your child is too old for this, I would tell you there's one that they can be using as an adult. My son does. He uses all kinds of things. His college, they have one for them to use. I think most people use a visual schedule. Otherwise, how would we make it to our appointments, right? Life is complicated. Okay, moving on. So that's just one thing, and it's the one that I think will get the most resistance. The other one in this dream phase is to make a list of musts. What do you absolutely have to do? Which isn't necessarily unpleasant. Let's not go there, right? But it could be that you have therapy appointments. It could be that you're going on a trip. It could be that you have to go to work, right? Or that you've scheduled them to go to camp and you've paid a lot of money for it. So you put it on the schedule as a must. See what I mean? It doesn't have to be negative must, but these are the things that are immovable. Now, as we start to schedule things, one of the mistakes that we frequently make, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm somebody who makes this mistake. We forget to leave time for travel, food, and breaks. Oh my goodness. I used to make my son's schedule, and it was like I could mystically, magically teleport from one side of town to the other. Or that I left no time for travel, or that I left the amount of time. If I were being helicopter dropped from one to the other, I certainly didn't take into consideration traffic and emergencies and things like that. Always try to build more time than what you think you need. Be realistic. And if you have to color code things and say travel, but really take a moment and step back after you put travel and breaks and food, and ask yourself, is this a reasonable amount of time? If you are giving yourself 15 minutes to eat, it's not a reasonable amount of time, right? And yet we do it. I do it even now. And this is also a great time while you're thinking of what are the things that have to go on the schedule that, aren't movable, to edit, because you're going to start to see, you're going to begin to put something on the schedule and go, oh yeah, that's mandatory, has to be, can't be moved. And then you're going to ask yourself, is that true? Is that absolutely true? Do we have to go to that thing? Is that thing of great benefit to us? Or is that thing sticking and making the whole thing not work? It's an opportunity to look at it. Because sometimes we don't have to do all the things that we thought we had to do. Okay, moving on to the next slide, if you don't mind. Yeah. So step 3, this is where it gets good. You can hear the former teacher in my voice. This is, we're going to make an educational wish list. So some of the things that could be on this list are things like, what would you love to have your child learn? I always think back to the mom who said to me, they had a child who was pretty impacted. And I asked her this question, if your child could learn anything this summer, what would it be? And she said, oh, you know what? I would like for her to be able to walk up the stairs foot over foot, because that's a point in development, right? When our kids first start to learn to go up and down stairs, they go foot up, foot up, foot up, foot up. And it takes a long time. Same thing with going down. But there's a point at which we teach them to put one foot up, and then the next step goes, and you go up the stairs in less than half the time, or down the stairs in less than half the time. It's a very interesting time in development because it takes a great deal of coordination and trust and eye, scanning. There's a lot involved in that skill, right? And it takes some time for some of our kids to learn that. And her child was a little older and had not learned that. And she said, that's what I would really love for her to be able to do. We put it on the list and said, this is a priority. Her team targeted it. And I'm not kidding you. It was like 5 days later that she called me up screaming and crying, saying, oh my gosh, we're there. And they lived in an apartment complex where there were like 30 stairs that you had to get up to get into the lobby. And when you're carrying all kinds of things, she was like, oh, my life just got so much better. And so did my daughters. So what's on your list? And it could be a physical skill, or it could, maybe this is the summer for the multiplication tables. We'll get there. Is there something that you're already working on that you want to really have the time to target? Because maybe you've really wanted the toilet training and you just didn't have the time. Well, summer, we can block that off, right? Is there something that you've been avoiding that you haven't tackled yet that you're like, okay, at some point we have to get that? I remember, diction was always a big issue. And in the summer we would go, okay, we're going to get after the diction, right? Is there something that you know is coming in the next school year? Now is the ideal time. I've said this many times. Hopefully you heard me before. Right around now is when you get invited to come to some sort of a back to school culmination thing. It's not graduation at school, but I can't think what schools call it. But where all the parents come and the teachers decorate the room with all the work that the kids have done throughout the year. It's the end of the year and you get to see what your kid has done and meet with the teacher. It's great. It's a little ridiculous to me because it's the end of the school year. You had an opportunity to do it at the beginning of the school year, but you didn't even really know what to ask then either. But now it's the end of the school year. So, they almost always do it in 2 sessions because if people have more than one child, they want to be able to go to the other child. So we would always go, make nice, see and ooh and ah over his projects and be so proud of him. And then when the second session started, we would hightail it to all the rooms of the next grade. So if he was in 2nd grade and that bell rang, that's, for people to do the second session, we were in all the 3rd grade classrooms and checking out the teachers, checking out the projects. And I was doing 2 things, meeting the teachers, to see what their reaction was. I would say, hi, I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm, this student's mother. And I could always, they were like, oh, I'm hoping I have him in the class, or, oh, nice to meet you. Right? It makes a difference. But I would check out what it was they were learning in grade 3. Now, could I have gone online and look up the standards for grade 3? And did I? Former school teacher, yes, I did. But this is easier because I remember when we did this, I think he was in 9th grade and they had this at his high school and they had all the presentations that the kids were doing. And we would check out the 9th grade and we went over to the 10th grade and I saw that they were working on the whole French Revolution. And I went, okay, good to know. And so, you know what we did in the car that summer? We listened to all these different books, including, why can't I think, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, the Dickens, that's about the French Revolution. And so we listened to it on tape so that he had all this rich knowledge, and we watched movies about the French Revolution. So when it came time, when he was in 11th grade and they were covering the French Revolution, it wasn't news to him. It wasn't something that wasn't fresh in his mind. You know what I mean? So is there something coming in the next year? This is where we talk about the multiplication tables, because there is one year, and I can't even remember now. Is it from 4th to 5th or 5th to 6th? I'm not sure. But there's a summer in which we know in the fall they need to have the multiplication tables. And let me tell you something, for a lot of our kids, it's what Temple Grandin refers to as the baby math, right? It's just a memorization thing with a little bit of cognition, right? To understand why 4 times 4 is 16. You just have to understand that, but then it's memorization. And for some of our kids, memorizing stuff takes longer, but you can target that in the summer and make it fun all summer long. And it has to be fun. If you're going to teach multiplication tables and it is not ridiculous fun, it's going to be a hard summer, and nobody wants that. There's one summer when in the fall, your kids need to know the state capitals. And perfect time during the summer, get yourself a map. And if you're going any place, you know, there are games, there are stickers, there's all these things that you can do to learn. There are puzzles that you can learn the state capitals, right? But if you wait to do it the week before they need to know it at school, it's going to be harder. And it doesn't have to be, because there's things that you want to be working on this summer. Is there an area in which your child is behind? Like maybe your child is behind on reading comprehension and you say to yourself, you know what? We really want to target that this year. We really want to, you know, I will say, I hate to do commercials for people, but I've had many people, many friends and viewers take their kids to Linda Mood Bell to work on reading comprehension. I can tell you, they were happy that they did. It is expensive. And they're not the only program that's out there, and there are many things that you can do at home. I'm just saying reading comprehension can slow your child up. I was at a IEP meeting not that long ago, that the parent was really wanting to have the team invest more in their child, and really running up against prejudice where they were like, this child's not going to be able to do that. And finally, it was so brilliant. The parent was able to say to them, what skill is it that my child would have to do for you to get more interested in educating them? And somebody slipped up. Hi, OAS. Somebody slipped up and said, well, you know, when children can read at a 6th grade level, then more things are possible. And the parent took that and ran with it and took their child to Linda Mood Bell. And at the end of that summer, their child was reading at a 6th grade level. And suddenly their child was welcomed into electives and things like that. So what's your child behind in that's holding them up? And can we put that on the educational wish list? Now, the last one that I have on this list, and there's many more that we could talk about, but is there an area where your child has a special interest? Because boy, summer is the time to double down on that. Does your child love trains? Then what can you do? Search and see, is there a trip that you can go on? I'll tell you something, here in Los Angeles, we have the Travel Time Museum. It's a free museum. It's open to the public, and it has old steam engines that are parked there, and the kids can climb all over them, and it's amazing, and it's free, right? So, I'm sure that there are other things like that in your neck of the woods or close by that you can do a day trip to go see something like that. Is your child super into the Titanic? Is there a Titanic exhibit that you can go to? I always remember Christina Adams in her book, A Real Boy, talked about how her son was just wildly interested in flight, in airplanes and flights. So she started taking him one summer to the airport to watch planes take off. And then it was like, well, what's the next step? So then it was, she talked to a pilot and said, can he come and look inside your plane? And then it was, okay, can he go up in a small plane with somebody? And then it became flight lessons. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just follow the interest. And summer is a time in which you can do that. And it's funny because I know a lot of times we think, okay, well, this sometimes people call it a perseveration. I don't know, perseveration to me is different than a passion, right? And there are things that our kids are passionate about. And I want to feed that passion because that can turn into all kinds of things. And it can turn into a career, right? Or a lifelong hobby. All things that reduce anxiety, by the way. But instead of saying, oh, we want to, yes, broaden their interests, but feed the passion. And sometimes people say, well, this passion is never going to change, but it does. It does. I remember the mom who her son had been really into Titanic, and they did all these Titanic things. And she they had a Titanic party and there were all these Titanic things. And she was like, that's it. He's going to be a Titanic expert. And then the next summer, all of a sudden he was interested in Poland and he wanted to know everything about Poland. And she was like, oh, okay. Oh, so these fixations are going to change. And it's different for everybody. So, and then they fed the Poland thing and then they went to Poland. They took a trip to Poland and then he was on to something else. So, don't be afraid. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's something that's a lifelong passion. I remember years ago going to a seminar that was being taught by a TV producer who'd been very successful in his life. And he was talking about when he was a kid. And when he was a kid, television was a pretty new medium, but his parents had a television set, and every night his parents would put him to bed and he would go to sleep for a couple of hours, but he had found a way to set an alarm that was very quiet. So after his parents had been asleep for an hour, he would get up and he would sit there and watch television until there was, back then television would sign off at like 2 or 3 in the morning and then come back on later on. And he would watch it until sign off. If his parents had known, they would have punished him and said, you can't be watching television. But look what it did in his life. He became a television producer and then, a network executive, and it was his life. Television was his life. He said, I've been passionate about this since I was 4. This is not new to me, right? And I think it's important that we remember that those kinds of things become what you do with your life. So let's feed those passions. So this is, we're making our list. It's important to include things in the summer that will ignite your child. We would always talk when I was teaching about igniting, lighting fires in hearts and minds, right? Because when you have a kiddo who's passionate about something, I was just on the phone with a dad yesterday who was talking about how after college, their son discovered that he's a musician. Have you all had that moment in your life where you were doing one thing, but you found a new thing? Oh my goodness, this was me with pottery a couple of years ago. I'd always wanted to do pottery on the wheel, didn't know if I could, started taking a class, and I was like, I'm not good at this. But I stuck it out, and I love it so much. I can say with all authority that there's a part of me that's a potter. Not necessarily good at it, but I love it. Now, let's transfer that to your kiddos. Don't you want that for them? Don't you want that kind of passion? So what are they passionate about? There are all kinds of things that you can find online. I do want to encourage you to look at Pinterest, look at camps, look at all those things, because if your children are a certain age, and I don't want to discriminate because sometimes our kids are possible of doing things before the age, but there are very young lessons for coding. There are lessons for creating their own video games. Look at Danny Bowman that you guys have seen on our show and on Love on the Spectrum. And Danny was an artist, and Danny started illustrating children's books very young. And then her aunt and uncle said, what if we took this to animation and got her some programming? And, she has her own studio now. She's an animator, and she's brilliantly talented, and she teaches other kids on the spectrum around the world. There are all kinds of things. And if you get curious, if you look at your child and if you already see something that ignites them, oh, please double down on that. If you don't see, and so often people write in and go, but I don't know what my child's passionate about. I don't know what would ignite my child. Then it's time to go shopping. And I don't mean shopping money, but it's shopping with experience. Expose them to things. You don't know yet what your child will be into. And I especially love for you to expose them to the arts. We had a thing here in Los Angeles, I think it was in Pasadena, that there was a children's arts program that every Saturday they would do two things. One would be that they would have an orchestral petting zoo. Oh my gosh. I was like, what is that? Are they going to bring goats and sheep in with the instruments and play music? Which I would have been into too, let's be honest. But what is that? What it was that they brought in all of the instruments from the orchestra. And this was before COVID, admittedly, but they were very careful about cleaning them even then. But your child could go through and try every single instrument. Oh, talk about exposure. Right? Because do they like the vibration of when they're playing the big bass? Do they like the way that feels? Or do they like to blow and do a woodwind? Or do they like the trumpet? Right? So that when you get to the music portion of like musical education, you might have a direction to go in. And we saw that our son really wanted to play the trumpet. How exciting. Listen, as an adult, I wanted to play all the instruments, right? What a fun time. It's just for kids. And then they would clean each one and sanitize them afterwards. But after that, so you'd go and you'd do the orchestral petting zoo, and then they would invite you to come upstairs, and they would have paid some local group either to do a dance presentation or a class. There was everything from drawing and art to theater and dance and music upstairs in the theater. And the old Pasadena, it's where they used to do the American Idol Hollywood Week. Now they do it at the Orpheum. But it was in that facility, and it was free. And it was a little bit of a hike for us to get to Pasadena, but it was a way to expose him to a bunch of things all in a Saturday morning. Pretty amazing. Can I also tell you, we would be doing therapy while we were attending that. We would have our behavior technician meet us there, and we would work on waiting in line, right? Because having to wait for the instruments, really hard to do. We would work on, how to physically maintain your composure in a group of people, because it was get crowded sometimes. We would work on sitting and watching a presentation and, focusing on that. We worked on all kinds of things. So we were double dipping, doing our therapy and doing this exposure at the same time. I'm just saying, there's things out there. Look, ask type into your computer things to do this weekend for free for families. Put as many, words in there but every city has things, and people will advertise that they're doing things. And some of them aren't every week, but maybe they're once a month. Check it out. Okay, what's next, Chris? Because we're running out of time here. Step 4 is make a fun wish list. So we've made the educational wish list. Now we got to make the fun wish list. What do you dream of doing with your child? And I'm saying, we've talked about igniting their passion, but what's your dream to do with your child? Come on. I know you have a dream where you're like, oh, I so wish I could do X, Y, or Z. And, sometimes it's expensive and we can't really afford it, but it's good to put it on the wish list because maybe you can't afford it this year, but maybe you can next year. And sometimes when you put it on your wish list, sometimes it just magically works out. Now is the time that I want to tell you about the Make-A-Wish. The Make-A-Wish Foundation a couple of years ago started to add autism. Here's how amazing the world has been. There are so many children who originally Make-A-Wish was for children who had fatal disorders and diseases and weren't going to live. And so they wanted them to have some fun, right? And Make-A-Wish is so amazing and did such good work that they kind of caught up with that. Not that there aren't more children every year that have that, but they made that possible for as many children as it applied, and they still had room for more. So then they started saying, okay, we're just going to do it for children that have illnesses, right? And they did that, and they kind of got caught up. And so a couple of years ago, they said, we recognize the toll that an autism diagnosis can take on a family, because the Make-A-Wish Foundation is first and foremost about the individual, but it's also about the family unit because it takes a toll on it. So Make-A-Wish has been the last couple of years, if families apply and say that their child has autism, or if your child has some other thing that's going on that has taken a toll on the family, it's a lengthy application process, but I promise you it's worth it. I know families that have, and you get to say what you want to do. Your child wants to go to a Formula One race car thing and meet race car drivers, they'll try to work it out. You want to go to Disney World and you can't afford it, and you want the best Disney World vacation you've ever dreamt of in your life, listen, you should apply. So whatever your dream is for your child, name it. And then let's look at, is it possible? And you can always apply to Make-A-Wish because it is your wish. What do they love to do that you can't do frequently? Is there something that you're like, oh, we went to this museum and they really wanted to stay all day, but you had to leave and you couldn't come back and you'd like to go and spend the whole day? Or is there something, they love to go to the beach, but you can get there once a year? Or maybe they love to go to an amusement park and you've only been once. What is it? Is there a place that they love to go? A lot of kids love the park. Well, you can put the park as one of those things that goes on the schedule that they can choose, right? Is there a thing that they love to do? It's different. Like swimming is a big one for a lot of our kids, but not all of our kids. But do they love going to one of those indoor bouncy places? I live in a place where it gets so hot in the summer that you really can't go outside. So we have a bouncy place, and they have memberships that, you can do play dates there. I can't tell you how many times we took therapists and took other kids and had play dates at the bouncy house thing that was around the corner from us. Indoors, air conditioned, because our kids couldn't be outside. So make the wish list of what are the fun things, because for the educational things and the fun things, you're going to start to make them be things that you can populate on that schedule. Okay, I think we got to hurry. Step 5. Because we're out of time. What's on your list? Here's some different suggestions of things that are on the list. I have to be honest that as our kids get more verbal, we get more information, but you can get this information because you just watch your child and what do they just find so much joy in? I put the picture of the kid in the fountain because there's a place in Universal City Walk where it's just this area where stuff shoots up from the ground. Oh, my son used to love to go to that. And every summer I love walking by and seeing all the families that the kids are running through the fountain. That's exactly what it's there for. There's lots of fountains where your kids can't run through them, but what does your child love? Okay, on to the next, step 5. Pick 6 core subjects, 6 core things. And now you're going to be able to start populating the schedule. So I made a big list of things that could be on the subject, and they're not all academic. Go ahead to the next one, Chris. So yeah, you're going to start to really figure out what are the 6 core things that you want to be regularly on the schedule. Like one could be fun time or relaxation or reading time or outdoor time, park, picnic, handwriting. Right? If you're targeting handwriting, make sure you're doing the, look online, look on Pinterest, because there are great handwriting helps for that. Screen time, reading, water fun, gross motor, fine motor, chores, therapy, math, speech, play date, art. What's important to you? This is just a beginning list, but so that when you're making that schedule, either you're making it or you're making it with your child. And I encourage you when they're old enough to, and if there's pictures, and they start to understand, time, they start to understand morning and afternoon, and, they'll keep the schedule better than you will. Trust me, after you've done it a while. All right, let's go on to the next one, because I think we're at step 6. Step 6, after having planned all this stuff and you've got your visual schedule and you've got your things and your child is doing it with you. And now step 6 is demonstrating flexibility. So sometimes, and you have to do this, my friends. And sometimes it's like, I don't know how I can after I've done all this work. Sometimes you have to throw the schedule out. Sometimes you have to get up in the morning and go, here's the schedule, but guess what? Let's not do that today. Let's just go to the beach, right? And what that does is it creates flexibility. And those little markers, it's like a little seed that you put in your child's brain, that we have the schedule and we do the schedule. And the schedule is there and it's cooking with gas, and we don't do this all the time, but occasionally we do something different, because and it's got to be fun, the different that we do, right? Because sometimes the schedule changes and it wasn't because we meant to. And we want to build in our child's repertoire that it's okay and that, life goes on. So we want to start by doing that with fun things. We want to find the joy in keeping and amending the schedule. And we want to have it there as a safety net, right? So that we don't have to invent the day. We don't have to figure out what we're doing, and we know what we're doing, but the schedule doesn't run us. We run the schedule, right? So if we get to, let's say that, we've made the schedule for the day and we put the chore that we wanted to go to the grocery store at 3:00. But we find that we're in the pool and we're having such a good time and a friend has come that we didn't know. We can say to the child, should we stay in the pool or should we go to the grocery store? And the child, if they're able to have the ability to communicate, is going to say, I want to stay in the pool. And we can say, okay, we can stay in the pool now, but after dinner, when we had movie time, we'll have to go to the store then. And that teaches your child flexibility. It's going to help them to realize that you have their back and that you're prioritizing them and their fun, but it's equal and even, right? If we take something off, we got to put something in another place. That is a life skill that if you start to build for them, it will make it so down the road when the schedule changes, they won't have anxiety. And that is a gift that you give your child that pays off in spades, right? So really important, this step, having that flexibility. Now, it's different for everybody how often you do this, but if you do it too often, you will see that your child will now go, I don't have to do the schedule. And they will constantly negotiate and say, well, I don't want to do that. Can't we do this? Can't we do that? And your whole life will become a negotiation. So you got to be careful about that. If you don't do it often enough, what will happen is you will see that the child will start to have anxiety because you're changing something on the schedule. So you got to find the sweet spot. And I wish I could tell you all the secrets to it, but it really is individual based on you, your life, and your child, what they can take, what their ecosystem. So you have to be brave. You got to foray in. And the first time you do it, you got to make it so ridiculously fun that it overcomes any anxiety, which will make it easier for the second time. In my family, we had an expression that was called Brussels sprout pie. So whenever there are little kids in our family and we're going to do something fun, you don't always tell them. If you're going to go to Disneyland, you don't always tell them because if something gets in the way. So, and it's fun to surprise them and get up in the morning and go, guess what we're doing today? We're going to Disneyland. But we wouldn't say that. we didn't live by Disneyland either at that point, but we would say to the kids and family, oh, you know what, we're going to throw away the schedule today, and we're going to, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have Brussels sprout pie. and kids always go, I don't like Brussels sprouts. I don't really, why are we doing that? But that was code, and they would learn it. That was code for we're about to do something really fun. And so everybody would be like, oh, Brussels sprout pie, can't wait to see what it's going to be. And the older kids would show the younger kids, oh, Brussels sprout pie means we're going to do something really off the chain. You know, it's going to be really fun. So all this to say that summer can be a really wonderful time. I do want to say that, and I've shared this before, there was one summer where what we were asked to work on was my child being with other children. And because he's an only child and playing with other children, we were asked to do tons and tons of play dates, and to do them out in the community, not at home, out in the community. So I went through and found all the free museum days and all the days where things were happening. And before the end of the school year, this was critical, I made a plan, and it was called Thursdays with Jem. And I told I gave every single kiddo at that year-end party, I gave to every single parent a sheet that said, you're invited to Thursdays with Jem. Please feel free to drop in. We're going to be in this place at this time on this day. So it was every Thursday. And it was like, this Thursday, we're going to be at the Museum of Modern Art. This Thursday, we're going to be at this beach. This Thursday, we're going to be at that travel museum with the trains. You know, and it was every Thursday in the summer. And I said, you don't have to RSVP, but you can call me for information and directions. But we will be, now it was scary because I was committing to being at those places on that day, which, you know, that always makes me a little squeamy. But I also needed to do that because we were still doing our ABA therapy, and which was, by the way, one of our immovables. We were going to be doing the ABA therapy no matter what. But we made it fun. And they were saying to us, he needs to be doing stuff in the community with friends. So I need to be able to tell them in advance, this is where I need my behavior technician to meet us at this time. And once I had that all, it was like being an army general, you know, having like notify all these people, but it made it so much easier because then the summer was set. And I would know, it was hanging on the inside of the kitchen cabinet. I love to hang things on the inside of the kitchen cabinet because it's there and you can close it and it's not cluttering your house. So I would look and I'd go, oh, okay, so this Thursday we're going to this museum. And I would know that the behavior technician was already set up to do it. And I was always afraid that like everyone was going to show up on the same day or that no one was going to show up. And it just worked out, my friends. The universe took care of us. And there'd be like 2 or 3 kids and their parents who would show up and say, hey, you know, we're here for the ride. This was the one that we really wanted to do. And they would come with us. Amazing, amazing summer. He made so many friends. I made friends because I was there with the parents. And we got a lot accomplished because the behavior technician was there too. Oh, please, you know, include them in the things that you do because they make it so much easier and they make it so that it's fun and educational and you're learning from them about how to do that when you no longer have therapy. Oh, it can be such a good time. Summer is such a good time. But if you think that it's like, oh, we're just going to have downtime, I guarantee you by day 3, you're going to be pulling your hair out. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. Your children are used to being on a schedule at school. They're used to a certain amount of entertainment. You don't have to work yourself into the ground. Just schedule it. And you will find that you'll make great progress, have a great summer, strengthen that connection with your child, build skills that are going to help them in the new school year, and make memories that will last a lifetime. Take pictures while you're doing it. All right, my friends, and let us know what you did and how it worked and so on and so forth, because I really, really enjoy that. All right, we are out of time. We have great shows for you next week. I know that I don't know if it's on Monday or Wednesday. We're having Lisa Ackerman back, and she's going to be talking about the prevalence numbers. We had her on in April, but we had to pre-tape in March. And the prevalence numbers hadn't been in. It's Monday. It's Monday, you guys. So our next show when we come back, Lisa Ackerman's really going to take apart the prevalence numbers for us and explain the finer points of what we need to know. I saw on one report, and I want to hear from her if it's true, that and I haven't been able to, I saw it on the first day and then I haven't been able to find it. So it might be a myth, but I was seeing that at school age, that 1 in 12 boys in California, 1 in 12 boys on some version of on the spectrum. Whoo, I don't know. I don't want to be spreading rumors, but it's one of the things that I want to ask Lisa about, because that's mind-boggling. All right, you guys, I hope that you have an amazing weekend. If any of you, I'm going to be at in our Temecula, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders Temecula offices tomorrow. If you are anywhere around there, let us know. All right, but we'll be back on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. All right, bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.